My name is Harper Sinclair. I'm 29, and I'm the CEO of Driftwood, a boutique coffee chain in Portland, Oregon. I never imagined that a quiet Friday evening on our rooftop terrace could spiral into a financial nightmare. It was the kind of night I treasured most. The sky painted in auburn hues, a vanilla cappuccino warming my hands, and the distant glow of the city lights reflecting off the steel and glass skyline. Then my phone buzzed with an urgent alert. Unactuated $15,768.92 on corporate account. The numbers blinked like a warning beacon shattering the calm. $15,768.92. Nearly 30% of last month's revenue evaporated in a flash through transactions I never authorized. My pulse thundered as I scrolled through each line item, multiple charges ranging from $200.00 to $3,500.00, all executed within 15 frantic minutes. A sharp wind carried the scent of roasted beans, but the unexpected chill that gripped me felt nothing like Portland's autumn breeze. In that instant, I realized I was staring down the biggest crisis of my career. Looking back at the early days of Driftwood, I can still taste the bittersweet aroma of ambition mixed with uncertainty. In the spring of my 24th year, I partnered with Olivia Davis, my closest friend from university, to chase a shared dream, bringing specialty coffee to Portland's bustling Sunday market. Armed with a $5,000 loan from our families and a borrowed espresso machine we rescued from a closing café, we set up a modest wooden cart beside dozens of seasoned vendors. Our cart bore a simple hand-painted sign, Driftwood Coffee Co., fresh, fair, local. Those first 8 months tested every ounce of our resolve. On golden mornings, we sold out of our single Salinure pour-overs within 2 hours. On gray afternoons, we watched the daily balance dip into the red by $150.00. Each evening, Olivia and I would collapse on mismatched stools in her cramped garage apartment, sorting receipts under a single desk lamp. She sketched witty chalkboard menus, Java, Joy, and Jive, while I tracked every penny, down to the 2.3% credit card fee on each sale. We experimented with pricing, raising drip carb bar menus, Java, trimming latte sizes by half an ounce there, all to keep our margins alive without betraying our commitment to pay fair wages and sourcing ethically. Despite our sweating hands and racing hearts, word spread. By month 9, we averaged $4,200.00 weekly in revenue, more than double our conservative projections. Portland food bloggers praised our velvety macchiatos, strawberry almond cold brewed, and tangy hunting cortado notes. A local Instagram influencer snapped our latte art, a delicate fern curling atop espresso, and her post drew an overnight line around the block. When we reinvested 100% of our profits into a commercial roaster and precision scales, customers noticed the uniformity and clarity of each new batch. Exactly 12 months after that first Sunday market setup, nearly 16-hour workdays had broken even. One chilly October morning, the ledger glowed with $12,500.00 in total sales, enough to cover every single loss we'd absorbed. I still remember Olivia's grin when she pressed the final balanced column to my chest, her relief palpable as she whispered, "We did it." That moment marked our transition from eager novices to fledgling entrepreneurs. Buoyed by that milestone, we opened Driftwood's first brick-and-mortar café the following spring. We leased a 900-square-foot space near the Pearl District for $3,200.00 per month, committing to a 3-year lease. I negotiated hard to secure a $30,000 0 cents equipment package, espresso machine, grinder, water filtration, and refrigerated pastry display, while Olivia rallied our crowdfunding community, raising an extra $10,000 0 cents in pre-sold coffee subscriptions. We hired 3 part-time baristas, including Alina, whose warm smile and encyclopedic knowledge of coffee origins became the heartbeat of our new location. Initial expenses totaled $45,000, 0 cents for renovations, decor, payroll, and initial inventory, leaving us feeling both exhilarated and terrified. The next 18 months were a whirlwind. We added 3 more cafes, each in culturally distinct neighborhoods: Alberta Arts, Hawthorne, and Selwood. Every location contributed roughly $30,000, 0 cents in monthly revenue, pushing our total above $200,000, 0 cents. We juggled vendor contracts for locally baked pastries, $1,800, 0 cents monthly. Fair trade beans from Costa Rica, $8, 0 cents per pound wholesale, and a rotating lineup of guest roasters to keep the menu fresh. Yet beyond the hard numbers, it was the bond between Olivia and me that sustained Driftwood's heartbeat. We marked each victory with small rituals, uncorking a $25 0 cents bottle of Pinot Noir after clearing our first $50,000 0 cents quarter, or celebrating our inaugural wholesale deal with a local bakery chain supplying 300 loaves weekly with homemade tiramisu in tiny espresso cups. When a supply chain hiccup threatened our signature La Esperanza roast, delayed shipping pushed us to the brink. Olivia taught me to negotiate directly with the cooperative in Costa Rica, navigating time zones and currency exchanges at 4 a.m., her persistence outlasting my dread. Transoria became our guiding star. Every Friday morning, we hosted an all-hands meeting. Olivia shared marketing metrics, Instagram engagement up 12%, promotional spend at 3% of revenue, while I reviewed P&L statements and cash flow projections. We set up a 5% quarterly profit-sharing bonus for staff when revenue targets were met, which cut turnover for an expected 4% in year 1 to just 12% by year 3. Watching part-time barista Jamila save up for nursing school reminded me that our decisions carried real weight in people's lives. Of course, the journey wasn't without stumbles. A mislabeled flyer for our spring blend launch cost $800, 0 cents in wasted print materials, and a botched calibration left a week's worth of espresso shots sour. Our first health inspection flagged improper disposal of coffee grounds, leading to a surprise weekend closure, and $600, 0 cents in lost revenue. Each setback stung, but we learned fast. We contracted a waste management service for grounds, $150/month, and instituted daily machine check protocols. Competition in Portland's fourth wave scene heated up when a rival café undercut our drip coffee price by 10 cents. Olivia and I responded by deepening community ties, hosting poetry slams every Thursday, and partnering with local artists for rotating gallery shows. These events drew crowds that spilled onto the sidewalk, turning casual passers-by into loyal patrons. Our customer base grew by 18% within 3 months, proving that a genuine can tell with a price war. Reflecting on that chapter fills me with humility and pride. 2 20-somethings with a $5,000 0 cents loan and a passion for coffee built something that endured. Olivia and I navigated every decision with the lessons of those Sunday market mornings etched into our strategy sessions. We learned that an empire starts with a single, courageous step, but as Driftwood prepares to scale again, exploring wholesale retail partnerships and a potential 5th cafe, I carry forward the foundation of shared vision and unwavering determination that defined our earliest journey. I should have sensed it long before the number screamed at me, but when you've built something from the ground up, you tend to trust every line on your screen, every balance sheet, every API log, every reconciliation report. So when I saw the first odd transaction on a late May morning, I nearly scrolled past it. It was a single charge for $1,275.00, labeled Café Supplies, Driftwood HQ. I was in my home office at 7:14 a.m., nursing a mug of cold brew while reviewing overnight sales. We typically spent $750, 0 cents 900 on cleaning supplies and single absorbed drift filters each week. But at that moment, I didn't question that extra $375, 0 cents. I chalked it up to a bulk order glitch. After all, our quarterly supplies order had just gone through, and vendors sometimes lumped multiple shipments together. Later that afternoon, our controller, Marcus, pinged me on Slack. "Harper, can you verify this $2,450, 0 cents charge for event catering Driftwood staff appreciation?" I don't recall approving a staff luncheon. My stomach dropped. I had approved only a $500, 0 cents budget for a small team meeting. Cafes don't profit on cake and croissants. I clicked the attachment, a one-page invoice from Opal Occasions, a catering company we'd never used. The total was itemized $1,200, 0 cents for pastries, $1,000, 0 cents for a grazing board, and $250, 0 cents for service fees. The date on the invoice was tomorrow's date. How could someone bill us for an event that hadn't yet? I opened our ERP dashboard, cross-referencing the purchase order number. No PO existed, yet the charge had already hit our corporate card. My pulse sped up as I dug into the audit trail. The transaction had been initiated by an internal user account, one belonging to the Driftwood central office. Not Marcus's account, not Olivia's. A user labeled C1. I clicked on the profile, but it showed only Cameron as the creator. That had to be a system placeholder. I copied the transaction ID and launched our bank's fraud detection portal. The timing was suspect. 3:47 a.m., long before the office lights flicked on. I flagged the transaction for reversal and drafted an urgent note to our bank relationship manager. "Morning, we've identified unoriginal charges on our corporate card. Please hold any further transactions from internal account C1 until we can verify." Then I called Olivia. She answered on the second ring, her tone bright. "Hey boss, everything good?" "Olivia, did you approve up $2,450, 0 cents catering order for staff next week?" A pause. "No, I mean, not that I recall. We talked about a pizza lunch, but I priced that around $200, 0 cents, not over $2,000. I swallowed. "Right. I'm seeing some weird charges. One for $1,275, 0 cents on supplies, and this catering thing. I'm freezing the card until we sort it." Olivia exhaled. "Strange. I'll check with Marcus. I've been swamped with the new marketing campaign. Maybe he initiated something?" I thanked her and hung up, but the knot in my stomach tightened. By 6 p.m., 2 more suspicious transactions had cleared $1,800, 0 cents, labeled equipment maintenance. Driftwood, Portland. $2,200, 0 cents, labeled training materials, Driftwood leadership. I opened our inventory logs. No maintenance technician had been scheduled. No new modules rolled out. I switched to our network subscription console. Sure enough, there had been 2 unauthorized VPN logins at 2:59 a.m. and 4:12 a.m., both tracing back to an IP address I didn't recognize. I forwarded the details to our IT partner and initiated a password reset for all Central Point accounts. My heart raced as I drafted a meeting invite for 8 a.m. the next morning. Agenda: urgent. Potential internal fraud investigation. I included Marcus, Olivia, and our head of security, Dan Unwa. My finger hovered over send. I hesitated. Part of me resisted dragging my co-founders into what could be a false alarm, but the cumulative total of unauthorized charges was already $7,725.00, and I couldn't risk a single extra dollar vanishing. That night, sleep eluded me. The café's espresso machine hummed through the wall, a reminder of all the mornings I'd greeted customers with a fresh shot. Now, I lay tangled in sheets, picturing phantom figures siphoning money from the lifeblood of Driftwood. The next morning we convened in our Pearl District office. Marcus arrived first, laptop in hand, exhaustion shadowing his features. Olivia followed, coffee in hand, and that same determined spark in her eyes. Dana strode in last, her security badge glinting. I opened the meeting. Thank you all for coming on such short notice. We've detected multiple unauthorized charges on our corporate card starting last week. Totals now exceed $7,700.00. I clicked through the slides, timestamps, vendor names, IP logs. Faces around the table grew pale. Marcus spoke up. I ran a reconciliation yesterday and noticed the $1,275.00. I filed it under miscellaneous. I thought I'd ask you before pulling the trigger. Should have pinged you sooner. Olivia frowned. Is there any chance these came from a third-party integration? Our payment gateway provider did push an update last weekend. Dana shook her head. I've already checked that. Their logs are clean. What concerns me are the VPN exceptions. Whoever did this masked their origin but used valid credentials. That points to an insider or compromised account. We sat in tense silence. Outside, sunlight filtered through the floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating the improbably peaceful streets of Portland. Inside, our team faced a trust crisis. I exhaled, steadying my voice. We'll treat this as an internal security incident. Marcus, keep reversing transactions with the bank. Olivia, help me map out who had access to Central Department credentials. Dana, I need a forensic report on those VPN logins. And starting today, we institute dual approval on any transaction over $500.00. No exceptions. Olivia nodded. I'll work with HR to notify any impacted employees, not naming names yet, but making sure everyone knows we're taking this seriously. Marcus tapped his keyboard. I'll loop in our external accounting firm for an immediate audit. Dana added. I'll tighten VPN rules and rotate all passwords. Then we'll roll out 2-per-minute authentication for every account. As the meeting wrapped, I could feel the foundations of our trust trembling beneath us. But laying bare the problem felt like the first step toward solving it. The first signs of trouble had arrived quietly, just a few odd charges, a couple of late-night logins, yet their implications were seismic. I left the office that afternoon carrying a paper cup of Americano. The barista's cheerful, "Have a great day," grated against my nerves. Driftwood had grown fast, 5 locations, $200,000, 0 cents in monthly revenue. A team of over 20. We'd built a brand on authenticity. Now, authenticity demanded admitting vulnerability and rooting out the rot. That evening, as I reviewed the forensic logs, I realized there was no going back to business as usual. Every policy, every approval process, every team trust exercise would need revisiting. But I also knew that addressing these first signs of trouble head-on was the only way to save everything Olivia and I had sacrificed to create. And however hard it would be, I was determined to see it through. In the days that followed our internal investigation, I watched every transaction with mounting dread. Our dual approval system caught 2 more illicit charges, $3,200, 0 cents for premium coffee, beans, Driftwood HQ, and $2,300, 0 cents for executive training seminar, Seattle. Each time, Olivia and I hovered over the screen together, eyes darting for anomalies. We reversed the charges, froze cards, reset passwords, and brought in external auditors, believing the threat lay beyond our walls. But then came the call from our forensic accounting partner, Harper. Their voice was clipped, professional. We've traced all unauthorized transactions totaling $45,000, 0 cents, to a single internal email address, olivia@driftwoodcoffee.co. My breath caught. That couldn't be right. I replayed every moment of the past week, searching for missteps in our logs. That afternoon, I confronted Olivia in our Pearl District office. The late afternoon sun slanted through the windows, casting long shadows across the reclaimed wood conference table. She looked up from her laptop, brows furrowed. "Olivia," I began, voice steady though my heart raced. "Our auditors just confirmed that all unauthorized withdrawals, approximately $45,000, 0 cents in total, were initiated from your Driftwood email." Her eyes widened in shock. "What? That must be a mistake." I slid the forensic report across the table. It detailed every forged authorization request, every fake purchase order, and each transaction's metadata timestamps, originating IP addresses, even the digital signature that matched the encrypted key associated with her account. Olivia's breath caught. She ran a hand through her hair. "Harper, I didn't do this, I swear. Someone must have compromised my account." I met her gaze. "Your account was accessed through 2-minute authentication, Olivia. The hackers or insiders used your phone to approve logins. That tells me either you shared your device or you're complicit." Silence hung heavy. I thought back to our late-night strategy sessions, the hours we'd spent over canvases of market research, and the promises we'd made one another. Could it be that the person I trusted most in the world had betrayed me? I pressed on. "The fake invoices were sent from an address with your name. They even used a forged PDF of your signature, and every time our security chilled the activity, another charge appeared under your domain." Her lips trembled as Olivia closed her laptop. "Harper, please believe me, I never ordered those things." I extended the report further. "Look at this entry. 3:08 a.m. Event catering Driftwood staff appreciation. $2,450, 0 cents. Opal occasions." The invoice was created in your name. Tears welled in Olivia's eyes. She pushed back her chair. "I don't know how to explain this. I would never risk everything we built." I swallowed hard. "We need to bring in HR and our attorney. This isn't a simple security breach, it's a potential felony." Olivia's face drained of color. "Are you accusing me?" My throat tightened. I closed my own laptop and stood slowly, keeping my voice calm. "I'm saying we have evidence pointing to you. We'll let the professionals sort out whether your credentials were hijacked or whether you knowingly committed these transactions." For a moment, I saw the old spark of determination fade from her eyes, replaced by fear and something else I couldn't yet read. Guilt? Sadness? She looked away, voice barely above a whisper. "If there's an investigation, they'll find nothing. I'll cooperate, but I promise you, Harper, I didn't do this." I nodded, though each word felt like a blow. You'll need to turn in your company phone, your keys, and any access credentials immediately. We'll place you on administrative leave." Trembling, Olivia stood and gathered her things. As she walked past me toward the door, I realized that with one person gone, the foundation of our partnership was irrevocably cracked. The next morning, Driftwood's team gathered for a town hall meeting in our largest café on Hawthorne Boulevard. I stood before them, 20-odd faces, expectant, anxious, curious. I had rehearsed these words countless times in my head, but saying them out loud felt like ripping a bandage off a wound. "Thank you all for coming," I began, voice firm. "Yesterday we uncovered a serious breach of trust and financial misconduct within our leadership team. Effective immediately, Olivia Davis will be on leave while we conduct a full investigation with our legal counsel and external auditors." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Our head barista Alina covered her mouth in shock. Marcus's face betrayed disbelief. I continued quickly. "I understand this is unsettling. I want to assure you every dollar taken will be recovered, and we are taking every step to strengthen our controls so this never happens again." Hands shot up. A junior barista named Aval asked, "Are you saying Olivia stole from us?" I paused. "I'm saying we have evidence linking those charges to her account. We're following due process to find the truth." Murmurs swelled. Some employees looked angry, others teared up. After 30 tense minutes of questions, I closed the meeting. "I know this shakes the very trust that underpins Driftwood. But we will rebuild stronger than before. I promise you that." As I locked the cafe doors that evening, the weight of betrayal pressed down like an anchor. Olivia had been my friend, co-founder, confidant. We'd navigated every startup storm hand in hand. Yet here she was, walking away from the company she helped build, leaving behind a trail of shattered trust and a $45,000 0 cents hole in our finances. Over the next 2 weeks, the investigation peeled back more layers. Forensic IT experts confirmed that the IP addresses used to send forged invoices and authorize payments were routed through a VPN entry point associated with Olivia's home network. Interviews with our admin assistant revealed that Olivia had started working odd hours late at night, claiming urgent marketing deadlines conveniently coinciding with the fraudulent transactions. I pored over message logs and email threads. One late-night Slack notification showed Olivia asking our operations manager for more petty cash reimbursement, an innocuous request on the surface. But time-step comparisons revealed that within 20 minutes of that message, another $1,500 0 cents had cleared to a landscaping vendor named Greenscape Solutions, a company none of us had ever hired. Confronted with this evidence, Olivia admitted to me in a private recorded interview that she'd siphoned the funds to bankroll a side venture, an artisanal tea shop in Seattle she'd been developing in secret. She claimed it had grown from a harmless passion project into a money pit she desperately needed to fund. "I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed," she sobbed. Hearing her confession through the attorney's recorder felt surreal. The woman who once promised to share every sacrifice and triumph had stolen tens of thousands to chase another dream behind my back. On the day we announced Olivia's formal termination, I felt a hollowness I'd never known. The press release was surgical, no bitterness, just facts. Olivia Davis has been relieved of her duties following an internal investigation that confirmed misappropriation of funds, totaling $45,000 0 cents. Driftwood has filed civil and criminal complaints and is pursuing full restitution. I watched the statement go live on our website and social media channels. Comments poured in shock, support, sympathy, even outrage at Olivia's actions. But behind the screens, the betrayal still stung. That evening, I sat alone in the Pearl District office with the forensic report spread before me. The city lights glimmered beyond the windows, indifferent to my heartbreak. I realized that while driftwood, a piece of wood carried by the current, might symbolize surrender, I had to choose resilience. Driftwood Coffee would not be sunk by one person's greed. Closing the report, I whispered to myself, "This ends now." And in that moment, I vowed to rebuild not just our financial safeguards, but the very culture of transparency and accountability that Olivia and I once envisioned. Because in the face of betrayal, only unwavering integrity could chart our path forward. When Olivia's name disappeared from our company directory, I felt as though the air had been siphoned out of my lungs. I locked the Pearl District office doors behind me and stumbled across the sidewalk, each step heavier than the last. By the time I reached my car, my hands were shaking so badly that I fumbled the key fob. The engine's growl was a lifeline, yet the hum of the heater couldn't warm the cold nut in my chest. That night, sleep eluded me. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling fan as it traced lazy circles above. Every blade felt like a metronome counting down the hours of my failure. I replayed every memory of Olivia's laughter, her midnight text about a marketing breakthrough, her grin when our first café cleared $12,500, 0 cents in sales. The way she high-fived me when we signed our first wholesale contract. Each recollection felt like glass in my mind, cutting into my confidence. By 3:00 a.m., I couldn't lie still any longer. I crossed the room to the minibar and poured a double of bourbon into a crystal tumbler. I raised it to my lips, but the liquid burned more than comforter. Tears blurred my vision as I sank to the floor, pressing my back to the wall. My phone buzzed with Slack notifications, concerned messages from Marcus, anxious text from our head of security, voicemails from our attorney. I hit Do Not Disturb and let the screen go dark. Morning arrived in a haze of regret and headache. I showered under scalding water until my skin turned pink, hoping the heat would wash away the shame. But when I wrapped in a towel and looked in the mirror, I saw hollow eyes rimmed in red. My usual confidence was gone, replaced by the tremor in my voice and the quiver in my posture. At the emergency board meeting, I barely registered the attorney's instructions. File felony charges, one advised. Secure criminal restitution, another added. The words were precise, but they felt distant, like instructions for someone else to follow. I nodded along mechanically, scribbling notes I couldn't later decipher. I felt surely detached from the fate of Driftwood, as if I were watching a movie about someone else's life. Back at the office, I walked the cafe floor as if on autopilot. Cup after cup of espresso poured without my command, drip machines gurgle mixing with the low murmur of patrons. I managed polite smiles, but the team saw right through them. Julia, one of our baristas, touched my arm and whispered, "Harper, do you need a minute?" I forced a smile and said, "I'm fine, thanks," but my grip on the milk pitcher nearly slipped from my hand. Midday brought a new challenge, fielding worried calls from investors. I slumped into a conference room chair and forced myself to explain, "We're executing a thorough investigation, and we expect to recover all misappropriated funds." My voice cracked on recover, and I caught myself before my eyes welled up. After the call, I slammed my laptop shut so hard the screen flickered. It felt like admitting defeat. That evening, I returned to my apartment and sank into the sofa, still wearing my blazer. I dialed my sister Emma, clutching the phone like a lifeline. She didn't ask how the investigation was progressing. She knew. Instead, she said, "Harper, this is the roughest chapter, but you're the author. It's your next choice that matters." I just wept into the receiver, the tears finally flowing after days of numbness. Over the next 2 days, I alternated between compulsively checking bank statements and hiding from reality. I slept in full business attire, convinced if I remained on the clock, I could will the crisis away. My appetite vanished. I survived on dry toast and black coffee, the brew tasting metallic on my tongue. I began waking in cold sweats, the dream always the same. Olivia standing across the empty café, arms crossed, eyes accusing. In a desperate attempt to feel control, I organized our files and spreadsheets in color-coded folders, labeled every vendor and transaction in microscopic handwriting. But each page reminded me of the empty $45,000 gyro cents hole. I felt like Sisyphus, rolling a boulder of guilt uphill only to watch it topple again. By the fourth night, the apartment felt like a cell. I opened my laptop to draft a public statement, but my words faltered. I stared at the blank screen until dawn, then gave up and deleted the draft. I wasn't ready to show the world how broken I felt. Midweek, a text from Margaret, our elderly regular, reached me. "Your strength inspires me. You're not alone." I clung to her kindness and invited her to the empty cafe after hours. She arrived with jars of homemade jam and stories of her own struggles losing a spouse, rebuilding her art career. Her warmth seeped into my chest like sunlight through fog. That night, as we spread jam on stale croissants, I allowed myself to share my fear. "I tell a story, but..." She placed a gentle hand on mine and said, "Turbulence doesn't mean the flight is over." Gradually, I felt the first stirrings of resolve. I rediscovered the notebook where Olivia and I sketched our vision on a Sunday afternoon, bean sourcing charts, community event ideas, even our motto, rooted in honesty, served with heart. I read our own words and realized I still believed in the mission. The betrayal didn't erase the impact we'd made together. That weekend, I took a rare morning off to walk along the Willamette River. The steady current reminded me that life moves forward no matter the debris carried along. I breathed deeply, letting the cold air fill my lungs, until panic subsided. I knew I didn't have to go back full speed, but I did have to go back. Recharge, yes, but retreat, no. By Sunday evening, I drafted my first honest message to the team. "I know the past weeks have tested us in ways I never imagined. I've felt grief, anger, and shame. But I also feel pride in each of you and in what we've built together. We will heal, rebuild, and emerge stronger." As I hit send, my chest tightened with fear, but also with relief. I had acknowledged my vulnerability and extended an invitation for collective resilience. The next morning, I walked into the cafe with no makeup, wearing a simple sweater. The team greeted me not with sympathy, but with solidarity. Marcus clapped me on the back. Julia handed me a latte with an encouraging, "You've got this." In their eyes, I saw belief not in the infallible leader, but in the imperfect human who refused to give up. That day marked the end of my emotional collapse. I still carried scars, nights of tears, weeks of doubt, but I also carried new strength forged in adversity. I had fallen apart so I could piece myself back together, more honest and more determined than ever to honor the promise of Driftwood. After weeks of sleepless nights and mounting dread, I reached a breaking point. I sat alone at my kitchen table, surrounded by forensic reports and legal briefs. My vision blurred by tears and exhaustion. That's when I received an unexpected text from an old client and friend. "Dinner tomorrow? I have something to share that might help." It was Sophia Martinez, the James Beard acclaimed chef who had hosted Driftwood Coffee pop-ups at her restaurant last year. I barely knew how to answer, but I typed, "See you at 7 p.m., hoping her invitation might pry me out of my spiral. At 7:02 p.m. the next evening, I walked into Ella's Bistro, on SE Division Street. The cozy dining room glowed under Edison bulbs, and the scent of truffle butter gnocchi floated in the air. Sophia waved from a corner booth, her warm smile a balm to my frayed nerves. We exchanged a hug, and immediately, I felt a spark of normalcy I hadn't experienced in weeks. Over a starter of heirloom tomato salad, I recapped the crisis in clipped sentences: Olivia's betrayal, the $45,000 0 cents in fraudulent charges, the police report, the half-empty redemption accounts. Sophia listened intently, her brow furrowed. When I finished, she reached across the table. "Harper, you've built something incredible. But you're fighting this alone." She paused, then leaned in. "I know people, lawyers, forensic accountants, even a banking contact who owe me favors. Let me connect you." Sophia's offer felt like the first tangible lifeline I'd grasped. The next morning, I met her banking contact, Derek Cho, Senior VP at Corporate. Over coffee at Driftwood's Hawthorne Café, Derek assured me he'd expedite our freeze and reversal request, and he'd assign a priority fraud team liaison. Reversing even half of the $45,000 0 cents in disputed transactions within days would settle our immediate cash flow crisis. Meanwhile, Sophia introduced me to Vanessa Liu, a forensic accounting partner at a top firm. I invited Vanessa to our Pearl District office the following afternoon. She arrived with a team of 3, briefcases in hand, and immediately set up dual monitors to parse our transaction logs. Over the next 48 hours, they unearthed patterns we'd missed: small incremental withdrawals disguised as legitimate corporate expenses, buried within routine vendor payments. Vanessa's team also traced residual funds diverted to an offshore account, an essential lead for law enforcement. With Sophia's support and Vanessa's forensic prowess, I felt my shoulders lift for the first time in weeks. But more than the practical help, Sophia offered emotional validation. She reminded me that vulnerability could be a strength. Asking for help shows you're fighting to protect the people who believe in you. Buoyed by that advice, I scheduled a Q&A forum for the team at our Alberta Arts location. The goal was simple: share where we were in the investigation, invite questions, and reinforce our commitment to transparency. When I opened the meeting, the tension in the room was palpable, eyes wary, arms crossed. I began honestly. "I won't lie, the past month felt like being caught in a storm without an umbrella. I've doubted myself, our mission, and even this company's future. But today, I want to share the steps we're taking to weather the storm together." I outlined the forensic findings so far, the recovery plan with Columbia Bank, and the timeline for legal action. I also unveiled 2 new policies, effective immediately: dual sign-off for every transaction over $250 0 cents. Monthly third-party audit of all corporate expenses. Afterwards, hands raised. Some voiced relief, "Thank you for being real with us." Others asked probing questions about job security and leadership changes. I addressed each with as much candor as I could muster. When the forum ended, a wave of gratitude washed over me. The team stood and applauded, voluntary, heartfelt applause. In that moment, I understood that leadership wasn't about perfection. It was about guiding people through crises with honesty. Meanwhile, Sophia kept checking in. She brought me home cooked meals, protein-packed grain bowls, and chia seed energy bites to keep my strength up. She encouraged me to step away from spreadsheets now and then, to clear my mind. One Saturday, she dragged me kayaking on the Willamette River, where I watched her maneuver the paddle with relaxed confidence. For a few hours, I wasn't a CEO in crisis. I was just Harper, a friend sharing laughter and sunscreen. As the end of the month approached, The banking team confirmed they'd successfully reversed $28,000 of the disputed transactions and placed irrevocable holds on the rest pending investigation. The partially recovered fund vaulted our available cash back to a safe cushion enough to cover 2 months of payroll and rent. When Derek Cho emailed the confirmation, relief flooded through me like electricity. Equally significant, Vanessa's forensic report pinpointed the person at the local landscaping vendor who accepted the diverted payments, a clue that law enforcement immediately acted on. The police arrested the suspect, who turned out to be an ex-contractor with a grudge against Olivia. Though her motivations didn't absolve Olivia entirely, it clarified some aspects of the scheme and strengthened our restitution case. On day 33 of the crisis, I hosted a small dinner at Driftwood's flagship café. I invited my core leadership team, Marcus, Dana, Julia, and of course Sophia. As we raised glasses of sparkling water, I shared a toast to the people who carried me when I couldn't stand, who reminded me that reaching out is a sign of strength, not weakness. Here's to rebuilding and growing stronger together. They clinked their glasses, and for the first time in over a month, I allowed myself to savor the moment. The crisis wasn't over. Legal proceedings continued, and we still had to implement long-term safeguards, but the worst panic had passed. I'd found a recovery spark in unexpected places, through a friend's generosity, a community's loyalty, and my own willingness to admit vulnerability. As I cleaned the table that night, I reflected on how our journey had shifted. I'd faced betrayal, collapse, and near ruin, but I'd also discovered a deeper reservoir of resilience. Funding the side project via deceptive charges had threatened to sink us, but it couldn't extinguish the community we'd built. And in that realization, I found renewed purpose, not merely to protect Driftwood's bottom line, but to elevate the values of trust, transparency, and collective strength that defined us from the very beginning. Dana nodded. Then we monitor who clicks authorize. It'll have Olivia's forged credentials if the culprit imitates previous behavior. We'll see exactly who bites. We worked until 2 a.m. designing the trap. The plan: create a fake invoice for premium espresso machine maintenance, Driftwood HQ, in the amount of $4,750.00. The vendor would be Cascade Precision Services, a name similar to our trusted existing partner Cascade Coffee Equipment, but slightly off a detail only someone intimate with our vendor list would catch. The invoice would require dual approval for payments over $2,500.00, triggering our newly implemented threshold. Under controlled conditions, we'd send it through our ERP with a timestamp matching the pattern of previous fraud around 3:00 a.m. I drafted the email from Olivia at driftwoodcoffee.co with the same header formatting as prior fraudulent invoices, and Marcus embedded a hidden tracking pixel. We uploaded the PDF to our secure vendor portal and waited, hearts pounding. At 3:12 a.m. 2 nights later, an alert pinged my phone. Transaction pending approval. Cascade Precision Services, $4,750.00. I texted Dana now. She clicked into the ERP logs. The approval chain appeared initiated by C1 at 3:12 a.m., pending dual sign-off. 30 seconds later, another alert: approval granted. Marcus exclaimed, "The second signature is live, and it's using Olivia's credential." Dana drilled into the metadata and revealed the critical detail. The approval came from a workstation logged in from the IP address assigned to the Driftwood corporate office, but at a specific desk terminal reserved for our operations manager, Avery. I felt my pulse spike. Avery had been with us less than a year, a keen and reserved young woman whose trustworthiness I'd never questioned. We sprang into action. Dana quietly directed the IT team to lock down Avery's credentials and to shadow her workstation through remote monitoring. Meanwhile, I called Avery to my home office under the pretense of a routine process refinement discussion. At 8:15 a.m., Avery knocked and entered, clutching a thermal mug of coffee. She greeted me softly, but I could see the fatigue in her eyes. I motioned to the conference chair. "Thanks for coming on short notice. I want to discuss workflow efficiencies," she smiled, setting her mug down. "Anything I can help with?" I slid a printed copy of the fake invoice across the table. "We introduced this template to test our new approval protocols. I noticed it was approved automatically yesterday morning at 3:12 a.m. Can you tell me about that?" Her face blanched. 3:12 a.m., but the office is locked then. I was at home. I leaned forward. "Our security logs show your workstation was active and that you authorized the payment using your credentials and Olivia's digital signature." Avery swallowed, glancing at the whiteboard behind me. I thought it was something you and Olivia set up. You two have done these system tests before." My stomach clenched. "Why did you use your credentials?" She bit her lip. "Because without approving it, the dummy transaction would roll back, and you'd know it was a test. You asked for realistic approval flows. I saw it in your night shift email with the subject, Urgent ERP Update." My mind raced. "Who sent that email?" Avery hesitated, eyes tearing up. "My personal email was hacked last month after I clicked a phishing link. Someone got access. They sent messages in my name to you and to Olivia. I didn't realize it was malicious." I swallowed hard. "So you weren't the mastermind?" Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I swear, I thought I was helping. I didn't know." I exhaled, heart pounding. "We need full transparency. Did you ever meet anyone who asked you to approve invoices or give them your second-factor code?" She nodded, voice trembling. "A caller claimed to be from IT. They said they needed to validate my MFA device and walked me through approving a test request." Now the picture snapped into focus. An external actor, phishing Avery's account to route approvals through a legitimate user. It wasn't Olivia. Her credentials had been stolen and abused, but a sophisticated scheme targeting our weakest link. Relief and anger warred inside me. I guided Avery through a secure recording statement and asked her to point me to any suspicious emails or call logs. Then I called Dana. "It's not Olivia. It was an external operation using Avery's credentials. Let's update the investigation scope." Dana responded. "Understood. Our forensic team." I sat back, processing the betrayal layered upon betrayal, the hacker's cunning, Avery's unwitting complicity, the near execution of my trusted co-founder. But the turning point had arrived. We had unmasked the real culprit, a criminal ring specializing in B2B invoice fraud. Within days, with help from Vanessa and the police cyber unit, we traced the VPN exit node to a shell company in Vancouver, British Columbia. Law enforcement secured warrants, raided the premises, and apprehended 2 suspects, both found with stolen credentials and a cache of forged invoices. Meanwhile, we rolled out a comprehensive security overhaul, mandatory hardware tokens for MFR, quarterly phishing simulation trainings, daily reconciliation reports flagged by AI anomaly detection, and a zero-trust intranet that segmented each user's access rights. Avery was exonerated and reinstated, equipped with new credentials and a thorough security briefing. Olivia's name returned to our directory, though the trust between us was irrevocably altered. As I sat in the Pearl District office with Marcus and Dana, triad of survivors, really, I realized something vital: turning the tables wasn't just about catching the bad actors. It was about transforming our vulnerability into an opportunity to fortify every facet of our operation. We'd moved from reactionary fixes to proactive defenses. We'd rebuilt trust through transparency. That afternoon, I drafted an internal announcement. Team, I'm grateful to share that our investigation has identified the external threat actor responsible for the unauthorized charges. Law enforcement has made arrests, and all funds have been secured or returned. This experience has been painful, but it's also taught us resilience and innovation. From today, we're implementing enhanced security measures, including hardware MFA, AI-driven fraud detection, and ongoing training to safeguard Driftwood's future. Thank you for your patience, professionalism, and unwavering commitment. I paused before sending, thinking of the long nights, the heartbreak, the storm we'd weathered. Then I clicked send, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. That evening, I joined Avery, Marcus, and Dana at the rooftop of Driftwood's Alberta Arts Café for a quiet celebration. Sparkling water, not champagne, given our commitment to financial prudence. We watched the sun dip behind the West Hills, and I raised my glass to resilience, to learning, and to the unwavering spirit of this team. Glasses clinked, city lights flickered on, and I felt an unshakable conviction: no scheme, no betrayal, no hacker could extinguish the community we'd built. We had turned the tables, and in doing so, secured the future of Driftwood. In the midst of the crisis, I discovered that some of the most unexpected breakthroughs came from the quietest corners of Driftwood. Take Avery Thompson, our operations manager with a background in Fortune 500 supply chain logistics. Avery had joined the team 6 months before the fraud surfaced, bringing a disciplined precision to our otherwise creative chaos. She rarely spoke up in meetings, but her eagle eye for detail proved. One evening, after everyone else had gone home, Avery stayed behind to reconcile the monthly roster logs. She noticed that a shipment of Colombian single pig beans normally weighing 1,200 pounds had arrived at 1,150 pounds. 5 pounds might sound negligible, but at our $1.75 unaccounted for. Curious, she traced the discrepancy through the shipping manifest and discovered a duplicate invoice in our system labeled Priority Restock. Instead of brushing it off, Avery printed the manifest and brought it to me. Though the high-profile forensic investigation was consuming my every waking hour, she reminded me that small anomalies often signal larger problems. We paused the big picture work and had the team re-examine all restock entries. Sure enough, 18 vendor invoices were padded with slight weight adjustments or marginal price markups, totaling nearly $3,600, 0 cents in hidden losses. Meanwhile, Marcus, the controller, was facing a personal storm of his own. With his grandfather's medical bills running $12,000, 0 cents per month, Marcus depended on his year-end bonus more than anyone knew. When the fraudulent charges threatened to eliminate that bonus pool, he threw himself into the investigation, running spreadsheets late into the night and personally calling bank contacts to secure reversals. Their quiet sacrifices galvanized the team. We began hosting nightly huddle sessions in the back kitchen, part forensic review, part support group. Over scones and fresh brew, Avery and Marcus would share findings, trade encouragement, and laugh through occasional mishaps. "Remember when I glazed that spreadsheet in vanilla latte?" Marcus joked once. Those unplanned gatherings became our heart, a reminder that behind every line item and vendor code were real people with real stakes. Ultimately, Alvarez's diligence and Marcus's dedication taught me a crucial lesson. Our greatest security asset wasn't technology alone, but the people who cared enough to notice and to act. Their side stories became our bonus insight, proving that a culture of attentiveness and mutual support can thwart even the most sophisticated schemes and bind a team together in the process. I never imagined that the moment we'd been dreading would arrive when two uniformed officers knocked on our office door. It was a crisp Tuesday morning. Sunlight slanted through the blinds of the Pearl District conference room, illuminating the forensic binders I'd spread across the table. My heart pounded as I led Metro Vancouver Police Detective Alvarez and Corporal Reed through the sequence of events: the shell company in Vancouver, our counterfeit invoices, the stolen credentials, and the trail of digital breadcrumbs that culminated in their arrests. Detective Alvarez nodded gravely. "We executed the warrants last night," she reported. "Servers, hard drives, forged documents, everything matches your submission. We have 2 suspects in custody: the ringleader who managed the invoicing software and an associate who maintained the VPN exit points." Relief and vindication washed over me, though it did nothing to erase the months of anxiety. Within hours, Alvarez handed me a sealed envelope containing copies of the warrants and a log of items seized. I traced the edges of the paper with trembling fingers, feeling the weight of justice finally tipping in our favor. Working alongside the Canadian Financial Crimes Unit, I watched as Derek Cho from Columbia Bank coordinated the return of frozen funds. Over the phone, his smooth voice reassured me that $37,000, 0 cents, had already been reversed back into our account, with the remaining $8,000, 0 cents, held in escrow pending legal proceedings. The numbers, once a source of agonizing debt, now represented our resilience. I pictured our staff, who had watched cash disappear night after night, breathing easier knowing our payroll and rent payments were secure once again. That afternoon, in a flurry of emails, our attorney filed both criminal charges and a civil suit in Multnomah County Circuit Court. I sat in my home office watching the public docket update in real time. Hearing terms like wire fraud, identity theft, and aggravated forgery applied to those who had threatened Driftwood's future felt surreal. We named the suspects, the shell companies, and even a John Doe placeholder for any cocus pariers yet unknown. It was a stark reminder that our fight was not over, but now it was anchored firmly on the side of the law. The next step was reputation repair. We crafted a press release and open letter to Portland, acknowledging our vulnerability, explaining the fraud scheme, and outlining the robust security measures we'd enacted. I stood in the Alberta Arts Café, surrounded by warm wood and the hiss of steam wands, as I recorded a short video for social media. My voice was steady as I spoke directly to our customers. Transparency has always been our foundation. Today, we recommit to safeguarding your trust with even greater vigilance. When the release went live on our website and was picked up by the Portland Business Journal, I saw the headline shift from alarm to admiration. Driftwood Coffee CEO turns crisis into catalyst for security innovation. In the days that followed, the Oregon Small Business Association invited me to co-host a statewide webinar on fraud prevention. I found myself on a virtual stage alongside representatives from Columbia Bank and our forensic partners, sharing the hard-earned lessons of our ordeal. Over 200 business owners tuned in from corner delis to boutique retailers and asked probing questions about phishing simulations, dual approval workflows, and zero-trust network design. As I spoke, I realized our story had transcended Driftwood. It was now part of a collective effort to strengthen Portland's small business community. But amid the legal filings and media appearances, I never lost sight of my team. We convened a town hall meeting in the Hawthorne Café where it all began, and I looked into the faces of 20 loyal baristas, roasters, and managers. Markers held up the final accounting of $45,000, 0 cents misappropriated. $44,700, 0 cents had been recovered. Our net loss, $300. I felt tears prick my eyes as I admitted my gratitude and my apology for the turmoil they'd endured. Then, almost on impulse, I handed out resilient certificates, small cards, engraved with our motto, rooted in honesty, served with hurt. Laughter and applause broke the tension in their smiles. I saw the unbreakable spirit that had carried us through. Finally, with the court's restitution docket closed, I turned to the future. I proposed allocating $20,000, 0 cents of the recovered funds, to a new grant program, underwriting advanced training for our baristas and local roasters. The room hummed with excitement as team members imagined opportunities they'd only dreamed of, and as I outlined plans for our 5th Driftwood location in a historic loft on Northeast Portland's Broadway, I felt a surge of optimism. We had weathered the storm, caught the shadowy figures who sought to do us harm, and emerged stronger, wiser, and more united than ever. That evening, I paused on the rooftop terrace of our flagship cafe, watching the city lights flicker on one by one. In the distance, the Willamette River gleamed silver beneath the setting sun. I raised my travel mug this time, filled with our own signature cold brew, and whispered a quiet toast to the downfall of those who tried to betray us, and to the enduring power of integrity. Driftwood's story was far from over, but its next chapter would be written in confidence, candor, and unwavering community. I remember the morning I stepped into our Alberta Arts Café, feeling both anxious and hopeful. I spent the first hour poring over the ledger with Marcus. $37,000 reversed. $8,000 held in escrow. Nearly every cent restored. Those figures were victories, but they also reminded me of how fragile our systems had been, and how quickly things could unravel. I closed the ledger and gathered the team for an impromptu huddle behind the counter. Their faces were a mixture of relief and lingering worry, and I knew they needed to hear not just what we'd accomplished, but what we'd learned. "Team," I began, voice steady though my heart fluttered. "We've proven that swift action and transparency can overturn even the worst betrayals. But the real lesson isn't how we caught the fraud, it's how we choose to carry forward." I told them about the new rituals we'd introduced, dual approval for every transaction over $200, monthly fraud simulation drills, where we tested our own processes, and our shift to a zero-trust network that isolated each user's access. But then I spoke of a quiet practice that meant more than any protocol change: our weekly integrity check-in. When any of us, from barista to CEO, could flag concerns, no matter how small, without fear of reproach. The first week someone noticed a $9 discrepancy in petty cash, tracing it to an unrecorded espresso cup purchase, and leading us to tighten Respresso cup purchase, and leading us to tighten Respresso oil. Later, I stepped behind the counter to pull shots alongside Julia and Avery. We chatted about latte art and weekend plans as if nothing extraordinary had happened. The familiar rhythm of steaming milk, tamping grounds, and serving customers reminded me why we'd endured this ordeal: to nourish community, to honor craftsmanship, and to build trust, one cup at a time. By midday, the cafe hummed with our usual crowd. Regulars greeted me with smiles and queries about our Resilience Roast, the limited edition blend we launched to commemorate our comeback. With each order, I felt us stitching the fabric of trust back together. A new patron asked about the story behind the roast's name, and I found myself recounting with genuine warmth how our community had rallied and how that blend's proceeds would fund local fraud prevention workshops. That evening, I drafted a letter to our customers, an open confession, and an invitation to join us in building stronger safeguards. I wrote at Driftwood, "We believe in brewing more than coffee. We believe in brewing trust. Thank you for standing by us. We promise to keep our espresso strong and our integrity stronger." Hitting send felt like sealing a covenant. Over the next weeks, I hosted small gatherings in our back room, coffee and conversation with neighboring business owners. We shared experiences, swapped horror stories of fraud schemes, and discussed best practices. Phishing simulations, hardware tokens for multi-factor authentication, and encrypted vendor portals. Each conversation reinforced that our crisis, though terrifying, had value beyond Driftwood's bottom line. It became a catalyst for a broader dialogue on resilience in Portland's small business community. Back at the café, I noticed subtle changes in our culture. When a barista was uncertain about a refund request, they paused to ask for a second opinion rather than guessing. When deliveries arrived, Avery cross-checked vendor codes without prompt. Our integrity check-in box filled with anonymous notes, suggestions, questions, even compliments on how smoothly we'd handled the crisis. Transparency no longer felt risky, it felt safe. A month after the dust settled, I stood on our rooftop terrace, cold brew in hand, watching the sun set over the West Hills. The dominoes of betrayal had toppled, but we'd rebuilt something stronger in their place. I reflected on the journey, the shock of discovery, the depth of my own doubt, and the fierce determination that carried me and all of us through collapse and back to clarity. As I sipped the last of my drink, I whispered to the gathering dusk, "This is only the beginning." Because while we had closed the chapter on that darkest moment, the lessons we'd learned about accountability, community, and the power of honesty would inform every decision we made from here on out. Driftwood would continue to grow, not just as a coffee chain, but as a bastion of integrity in an industry where trust is the truest currency. And in that promise, I found not just resolution, but a guiding light for whatever storms the future might hold.